Welcome to Trust Talks with BBB Serving CT. I'm Kristen Johnson. In business, trust talks, and Better Business Bureau's mission is to enhance marketplace trust. In each one of our episodes, we hope to give you a better idea of what to expect, what to look for, and what to watch out for, so you can avoid being scammed and spend your money wisely. Today, we are tackling travel scams. Listen to this statistic. Last year, the FTC estimates Americans lost $105 million to travel scams. Travel scam reports come into BBB's Scam Tracker from all over the country every year, including right here in Connecticut. We're going to share one of those stories with you today. Inger Sjogren, she missed her connection in the spring, and so she turned to the internet to rebook her family's flight back home here to Connecticut. But it wasn't what it seemed. Inger joins us now. And Inger, thanks so much for being with us.
Hi, Kristen. Thank you for having me.
Tell me what happened. Start from the beginning.
Okay. So in April, I was on vacation with my daughter and my parents, and we had American airline tickets from round trip from JFK to Ecuador. So on our flight back, we were delayed leaving Guayaquil in Ecuador to Miami, where we would transfer, which caused us to miss our flight in Miami. So as it happened, because the way the luggage came off the airplane, my parents and my daughter's luggage came off first, and I had them go through security and move towards the gate so we would have a chance of catching the flight. My baggage came off a good half hour after theirs. So by the time I got to security to go through, the flight had already closed. The gate had closed. So I was stuck on one side of security, and my parents and daughter were on the other side. So I was quickly trying to figure out new flights to get us back to JFK. So I went to run up to the American Airlines ticketing counter, and they were just closing. So totally frazzled, I sat down on my phone and I Googled for the Platinum Pro customer service for American Airlines. I found the Platinum Pro American Airlines number, it said, and I pushed the link and got on the phone with a customer service agent who answered, good evening, American Airlines, how can I help you? And I explained the whole situation. And he said, I'm looking through my database and I hear all this clicking, ticking in the background, and there are no more American airline flights out of Miami with availability for 4 until Friday, which was a whole week away because it's spring break and so on. Let me transfer you to our rebooker. So I thought, okay, transfer me to your rebooker. It's American Airlines and they know what they're doing. So he transferred me. Someone else picked up and said, this is rebooking American Airlines. And I explained the issue, and he was going through like crazy. And he said, well, we can't get you on American, and all these flights are being booked up so quickly. Here's one. Let me put you on a Delta flight, and it leaves in 2 days, and it brings you into LaGuardia. And the price was, it's $3,787 for 4 one-way tickets. And it's peak season, and that's just the price. And I thought, but I bought him because I needed to get everyone back.
Before you go on, he got a little aggressive with you on the phone, though, didn't he?
He did.
When you hesitated. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. He said, when I hesitated over the price, and I said, well, it's American Airlines issue because of the weather and the way the luggage came out that we missed our transfer. I would think American Airlines would figure out a way to put us on another flight. And he did. He got aggressive. He said, well, everyone else got on a flight. It's your fault. Why is it our fault if it's, and I thought, this is not American Airlines. This is not how I'm used to being treated by American Airlines. But yes, he got aggressive, but eventually I bought the tickets. And he said the cost is $3,787 for one-way tickets to LaGuardia. I'm going to send you an email with the confirmation number and the ticket information. And when you respond to accept the tickets, I need you to send a copy of your driver's license because we're doing this over the phone. So I need to make sure that you're legitimate, the credit card owner. And I gave him my credit card information over the phone. And I was also to send him a picture of my credit card with only the last 4 numbers showing. Mm-hmm. So I responded to his email with the confirmation and the ticket numbers and so on with that. And then
he also asked for your driver's license, right?
Yeah, with the picture of the driver's license. And then he sent back a confirmation that he had received them and thank you very much. And the total cost was $37.87, but it may come across as 2 different charges on my MasterCard. It may be from Ticket Experts, or it may be from Delta, and he just left it open, but the total would be $37.87. Fine. So we got the tickets. The tickets were fine. We flew home to LaGuardia. A month later, when my credit card statement came, I noticed that there was a charge for tickets of $952 for Delta, and a charge to Travel Experts for $2,834.
And that's travel, all spelled out.
Right. Travel.
TRVL. And
TRLV with a star and then Experts.
Okay.
With a number also on the statement, right, as they will do. So I dialed the number, and the number was not a real number.
So what's going through your mind at this point? Do you realize
I realize I've been sold $950 worth of tickets and charged $2,834 as a upcharge by a travel agency that doesn't have a real phone number.
I'm sure looking back on it now, you probably think I can't believe that this would happen to me, right?
Yes,
but you have a daughter in school. You needed to get home.
A daughter in school. My parents are in their 80s. Like, everyone just needed to get home.
So unfortunately, in reality, this scam is actually really common. What you're saying is something that BBB put an alert out about last summer. We were seeing a lot of people reporting to BBB Scam Tracker about unknowingly using fake websites to book their travel. I want to bring in Carrie Jane now. She is the owner of Carrie Travel in Milford, a long-time business. You've been around for 40 years, been accredited with BBB for almost 30 of those years. You listened to Inger's story. Can you point out some of the red flags, some of the things that other travelers should be mindful of?
Well, normally when you're dealing with a change on a flight with an airline, American, especially if it's their fault that you missed the plane because of a delay, would endorse the ticket over so they would not upcharge you an extra fee. And for the price of a one-way flight being that high from Miami to New York, it would be first-class tickets. So there's a couple of red flags there. So they shouldn't have done that. And then when they said they were travel experts, they weren't really American Airlines. It was an outside company. But unfortunately, some people have fake websites and things like that. So you have to be sure. I know even on American, on their recording, say, make sure it's the official site and the original people that you're talking to.
Why do you think they wanted her driver's license? Is that typical protocol? They told her that they needed it for TSA because she was booking over the phone. Is that something you've heard of before?
The only reason I could think of they want the driver's license is that they have recourse to protect themselves because they're very clever, that you are who you say you are on the credit card. So they could say, oh no, I had proof that this person is the person that gave me their credit card and approved it.
Another scam that BBB often hears about is when people do an internet search for cheap tickets, and then they make the payment, they think it's all finalized, and then the scammers will call them back and say it wasn't finalized, you need to pay an extra fee, or the price just went up. If you want to keep your ticket, you have to pay us more. That doesn't sound like something a reputable
No, those are all
company.
red flags. No, you need to know that you're dealing with a reputable travel agency when you're booking too. I know, like, being a BBB member, people call me that have looked at my ratings on the Better Business Bureau as proof that I'm truly existing and that I have a good rating. Unfortunately, people are working out of their,
they're halfway around the
country,
globe in some
yeah,
cases.
so that you have no recourse when they're out of the country. So they purposely do that and scam you with sometimes a local number, which isn't even a local number, so that you can't go after them. But I think if you're working with an agency that's reputable, that you know about them, you've gotten their information through the Better Business Bureau, or they've been in existence for a long period of time, you're safe and secure than dealing with somebody who's a scam artist.
We've also received reports of people who have gotten fake cancellation notices, and the email will say, call this number so we can rebook you. So they call, and the price, of course, is much more than they were originally paying. And then they realized that that's not a true customer service number. They just called a scammer and gave their credit card information over. If they called United or American or whatever airline it was, they would find out their flight wasn't actually even canceled. How do we avoid these scams?
I think people have to a lot of people think they want to be their own travel agent and book a trip all the time. And then I hear stories where people have come to me saying, oh, this happened to me and that happened to me. And I said, well, if you used an agent, you wouldn't have had these issues. We try to be there for you. Just like sometimes people say, what's the difference of just going to the web or using a travel agent? I always say going to the web is like going to a clinic. And if you have somebody who's a professional, like a doctor, why would you go to a clinic if it's the same price and you're going to get better service? Why would you do that? But people think, oh, it's going to be a better deal if I just go online, or they're so used to doing everything online, but they're not aware that there's so many scams.
Well, before we move on, we're going to talk a little bit more about hiring a travel agent, but I want to stick with scams for a second because Better Business Bureau has some tips for you before we move forward, just to avoid some scams. So I'm going to read some of these tips. First of all, do your research. If you come across a company you haven't dealt with before, research it before making any purchases. Look on bbb.org for reviews and feedback from previous customers. Double check flight details before calling support. Scammers blast out fake airline cancellation emails and text messages, like I was just saying, and they can easily be mistaken for the real deal. So confirm the information in the message, such as the flight and reservation numbers, is correct before calling customer support. Confirm the URL before you enter personal and payment information. It can be easy to click on a sponsored ad or imposter website without noticing, as Inger learned. Before entering any sensitive information, double check that you are on the right website and that the link is secure. Secure links start with HTTPS and include a lock sign, a lock icon on the purchase page. And be wary of third-party websites. Some websites appear to offer a legitimate service but are only fronts for a scam. Be suspicious of websites with no working customer service number or physical address. Typos and grammatical errors can be indications of a scammer's handiwork. And finally, make online purchases with a credit card. Fraudulent charges on a credit card can usually be disputed, whereas that might not be the case with other payment methods. Unfortunately, there is no way to get back your personal information that you have shared. Now, Inger, you did use a credit card.
I did.
And you did dispute the charge to travel experts. What happened?
I did. So I disputed the charge, the credit card. So I accepted the charges from Delta Airlines for the tickets, but I disputed the upcharge from travel experts. So my credit card gave me a provisionary credit for that amount, and it's going into arbitration. They're looking into it. But about a week after I did that, I received a phone call from the number that had been disconnected that was associated with travel experts, with the voice of the same person I had worked with, asking to speak to Miss Inger. And I just hung up.
Okay. I hopefully this never happens again.
Right.
But if you're ever in this situation, what would you have done differently, or what would you advise other travelers to do if they're caught in that situation?
Okay. Well, first of all, I would have calmed down and not have tried to make plans when I was so stressed and anxious. And secondly, I would have called a travel agent to get me home with my family.
Those are good tips. Obviously, not something that you would expect to happen, but that's when it happens, when you're at your most vulnerable. That's when the scammers take advantage. They're there waiting for you to be in those vulnerable moments. So you can be taken advantage of, and that's why it can happen so easily to anyone.
Yes.
Ingrid, thank you for sharing your story, your cautionary tale. I appreciate it. You know, Carrie, you were just saying the internet makes it so easy for us to book our own travel, but that also makes us more susceptible to scams just like this. So why should people use, you kind of talked about this a little bit, but why should people choose a travel agent, and what should they be looking for? Because there are good guys and bad guys out there in any industry.
Right. Well, I think if you're not familiar with something, especially, I find that a lot of people turn to travel agents if they're traveling out of the country to Europe or different areas like that, because they're not as familiar, where if they're just buying a ticket to Florida, sometimes they book it on their own. But a lot of times if you go on the internet and book stuff, they're not going to tell you details. I mean, a big thing nowadays is you have to have at least 6 months on your passport from your return travel date, not your outbound, your return travel date. So say you were traveling in October and somebody's passport is expiring in January. They think, oh, I've got enough time because I'll be back before then. You don't. And you don't have at least 6 months. You would have to have your passport renewed. And people say, oh, well, what would happen? Would I go to the airport and they wouldn't let me back in the country? I said, no, you're not getting out of the country.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to leave, you know. So a lot of times people don't know all those little details, you know, of and people show up at the airport and don't pay attention to what the airline says, that it's 50 pounds for your luggage, for example, and you have 52 pounds. They're going to hit you with a service fee of another $50 if it's any pounds over 50 pounds. So, you know, that's expensive. So it's like we give all the pros and cons. Another thing too, somebody one time told me in speaking, like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to Maui in December. I said, oh, you are? Oh, yeah, because of Christmas and stuff. I said, you know, that's rainy season, right? So the internet's not going to tell you things like that. So, the internet also, too, is biased. So they say, oh, but this hotel says it's great, it's wonderful, you know, it's got a good write-up. Or this hotel's got such bad reviews, I'm not going to use that. It could be another hotel saying that about it. Some of these reviews are not monitored, so you don't know who's doing this to upsell their property over another property. An agency has current information on a lot of the hotels and what's going on. If a pool is closed, you know, nothing's worse than going on your vacation and find out that your pool's under renovation.
Right.
So it's like, you know, we're more detailed and informed with information. Also, too, if you book on the internet, you're there, you got a problem, who are you going to call? With an agent, you could always get a hold of them and say, you know, there's a problem, you know, with this room or something. And we use vendors that are credible, reliable. We deal with wholesalers sometimes so we can get you better prices. And for instance, if a hotel, which just like airlines now, they tend to overbook. So because of the no-show factor. So sometimes somebody's been pushed out of one hotel to another hotel. If that ever happened, I heard a person was telling me that they had this problem. I said, you should have used an agent. So I said, if you were my client, what would happen is if it was ever overbooked, they would upgrade you to a better hotel so that you would never go downhill to a different hotel or sometimes even get a better category.
Oh, let's talk about travel insurance. Not all travel insurance is alike. Should you get travel insurance? And I understand there's some exceptions out there, such as, you know, hurricanes or weather related. If it's already been forecasted, your insurance may not cover the cancellation of your trip.
Right.
Can you explain that?
Sure. One of the companies that we use all the time for our travel insurance actually tends to be better than sometimes using Disney's travel insurance or cruise lines, because if someone is 18 or under traveling with their family, there's no charge. So we save you money. People think because you're using an agent it's going to cost you more. No, I said half the time we're a travel agent, half the time we do it as if we're taking the trip, you know, so that we find the ins and outs of how to save you money. But with travel insurance, now I always strongly recommend it because, say, for instance, somebody gets COVID, you're not going to travel then, and the airlines aren't as lenient now as they used to be. They're charging penalties, so the insurance would cover something like that. It covers house devastation. If something happened and you had a fire or a flood in your house and you couldn't go and leave in 2 days because of that, that's a covered reason. And not only if you're sick, but immediate family members, mother, father, brother, sister is hospitalized or somebody, God forbid, dies, it's covered. People that are older, senior citizens, and they have Medicare insurance, it doesn't cover you necessarily out of the country. So you have to look at that. Our insurance does. Now, there are extra fees on some of the insurance if you want it covered for any reason whatsoever, because it has to be a covered reason as far as, illness or hospitalization, or, you can't go because of COVID, and it covers that. Also, insurance nowadays covers you for baggage delay and travel delay. So say, for instance, in your situation, if you had travel insurance and you got stuck at a hotel for a couple of days, there are limits on it, but they would pick up the tab on the hotel if the airline didn't cover it. They won't allow you to double dip, get the money from the airline, get it from the insurance. But even if you're delayed, it used to be like 24 hours. Now luggage, 7, 8 hours. You have to have proof from the airlines that your luggage is delayed. They give you credit to, you get so much money back to go out and buy clothes. You're going to a function, or you're in a nice resort and you flew in shorts and you have to wear long pants or a dress. You're captivated at a hotel, so you have to pay the gift shop price. As long as you have receipts, you put a claim in when you come back and you get the money back on that. So there's a lot of things that it covers that you wouldn't expect. In the old days, people used to complain, like if you had cancer or something, you were flagged and they wouldn't give you insurance. You can take insurance out as long as it's within like a 2-week window or so of depositing money on a plane ticket or a hotel. It covers anything pre-existing and they don't give you a hard time. If you're booking the trip 4 or 5 months before you go and all of a sudden you decide to take trip insurance out like 2 months after that, you still can get insurance. It just does not cover pre-existing because they feel now you're taking it out because you got an issue with something you already had. Okay. Say, for instance, though, you end up having an appendicitis attack, it would cover that.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time, but before we go, I mentioned that you've been accredited with Better Business Bureau for about 3 decades. Tell me why you sought out that accreditation and what you hope that seal says to your customers.
Many moons ago when I first started business, I was talking to the Milford Chamber, and through that I found out about the Better Business Bureau. And to me, I've gotten very good leads and contacts. There are people that usually are interested in booking a trip, where I find sometimes other people will call me up because all they want to do is pick your brain. And I said, that's not happening, because they're like, oh, I'll use you again. I said, no, you'll book with me, but not use me. But the BBB, kind of credited the people too, like of who they are. So they'll email me or call me on the phone and I'll give them prices on different things. And then they realize, that they're like, I don't know if I can afford this trip. I want to do this. We make suggestions. If you go on the internet, they're not going to make suggestions. So like a family trip going somewhere, the parents really wanted a balcony cabin, but they really couldn't afford 2. So we booked across the hall an inside cabin for some people, kept the price down for the kids, and they still got their balcony, and they were, just across the hall from each other. So if you have a good travel agent, they're going to make suggestions as if they were taking the trip. They're going to give you ideas and how you can save money. And I always say, don't go for that cheap hole-in-the-wall hotel, because then you're going to come back and complain. Get a little better hotel, especially if it's an all-inclusive resort, because you have all the amenities, the show, the great restaurants, the water sports, and get a less expensive room. So rather than take the most expensive room at a cheap hotel, go with a better hotel and maybe give up the view, and you'll have all the amenities that way.
Well, you're offering us a lot of tips, so we appreciate it. And you can find Carrie and any accredited travel agent at bbb.org/travel. We have a lot of good resources about avoiding scams as well. I want to thank you both for joining us today. Thank you again, Inger, for sharing your story. Hopefully, we've showed people how easy it is to fall for these scams, but also with your advice, Carrie, showed them how not to fall for scams as well. That does it for Trust Talks. We thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
The water's warm at Jaws Pond, and we're stocked full of treasures. Big or small, we buy it all. We buy and sell fast rides, power tools, vintage guitars, and so much more. Walk the plank in style with our fine jewelry, diamonds, and watches. Plus, we have a huge selection of the latest video games, including the new PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Jaws Pond, conveniently located on Meriden-Waterbury Turnpike in Southington and West Main Street in New Britain.
Your host, Kurt Barwis. Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Andrew Lim.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Veterans Corner. My name is Chuck Wooden.
Decision for ourselves for this week, if we want to be made well.
Hi, welcome to the crack of dawn. It's Dawn Lombardi. I'm starting the painting. It's going to be the cliffs with some water. Love it.
He took me on the sets of Lost in Space, Batman.
Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time.